What's up, guys? We're back with another video. This one is about consciousness. I remember we were talking in the last one about what consciousness is, and now we're just gonna follow the rest of the blueprint. It's about 7 aspects, and you can't read it, I don't know. And those 7 aspects, 9 aspects. Those 9 aspects, we talked about the first 5. So the first one was about being self-aware. So in the levels of consciousness as you flow and become a more enlightened individual, the way to gain the proper understanding is kind of following the blueprint of processes. So the first process you will follow will be becoming self-aware. So just as normal people, you know what you need personally. You just got to become self-aware of your own needs, and at that point, you're conscious enough to know that you are self-aware. It's not saying that you have no depth, but that's just the first level. And once you flow continuously, the second level will be, how am I making others feel? So that's where you learn emotional intelligence. So you got self-awareness, emotional intelligence. These are the first steps in becoming conscious. So once you become self-aware and you start to develop your emotional intelligence, situational understanding becomes the next process, and that is, why does this keep happening to me? So once you start understanding what you need personally, and you start making sure you understand how you are making others feel, and then when it comes to like things that are happening in life that may not always go your way, you have situational understanding. You kind of understand why it's happening. Maybe it's a higher power, maybe it's just the times, maybe it's just a test. It could be anything, but with situational understanding, it helps you grow into a space where you're not really too bothered. That's what the point of enlightenment is, growing into the space of, understanding what God's consciousness is and what God has for you. So again, you are self-aware, you have emotional intelligence, you have now situational understanding. That's level 3. Level 4 will be personal potential. What are you capable of? So in that process of, maybe things aren't good, what are you capable of doing? What can you do in that process to support yourself? A lot of people don't have that much situational understanding, which is why their emotional intelligence is kind of lacking, because they're not able to understand how they feel or how they're making others feel in that process. Without you understanding the situation, you could then affect people in ways that you're not really sure of, and that becomes a bigger problem over time. And that's what the point of becoming enlightened is, because as you learn enlightenment, you learn how to handle these types of situations, and that's just gonna occur as you continue to get older. Whether you have kids, you have different relationships, marriages, friendships, family bonds, these things, you have to have situational understanding, emotional intelligence. You have to become self-aware, because sometimes you are the problem. And if you aren't aware of that, you're going to cause a lot more problems. And some people have been causing problems for a long time in their life, but are not aware of it. So that's where you're not even conscious enough to change your habits and make better decisions. So again, that's where you go into consciousness. What's occurring around you, and what's the connection in your action? Like I was saying, people that aren't willing to grow or change or put in the actual work to be better, they can't see their personal potential. They don't know what they're capable of. They lack that what's the word I would use, pride and self. So that's the process. So that's where we started and went last time in the last video. We went through that process and talked about those aspects up until consciousness. So like I said, being conscious is understanding what's occurring around you and what's your connection in your action. So understanding what you are doing to, cause these situations to happen. Understanding what you aren't doing that's causing these situations to happen. For example, when you aren't, like me, if I'm not making my videos, if I'm not, encouraging others, or doing, my due diligence in the process of, my brand or what I aspire to do to motivate the nation, then that creates, more problems in my own life. I understand my potential and the things that I'm supposed to do, so I continue to do them. So that's where the spatial awareness comes in. How does your environment impact things, and how is it impacting you? So the spatial awareness aspect of consciousness, which would be level 6, it really boils down to understanding how things are affecting your ability to succeed. So in my process is, what are the things that are affecting me and limiting me from making these videos, or showing up for myself, or going to the gym. That is how you have that spatial awareness in the conscious element, because you are then aware of the environments and the elements that are limiting you to be able to change them. And that's hard. It's not easy, but that's where you go back through the process. When you are conscious and understand what's occurring around you and the connection in your action, you can then limit more problems along the way. That's where you understand your personal potential. You then understand what you are capable of doing. You can't worry about what anybody else is doing. You have to worry about what you are capable of doing, and you do that to the best of your abilities. And that comes to any and every situation, whether it's a problem with your mom and dad, a problem at work, a problem with yourself, or not a problem at all. Maybe you want to grow or expand. Maybe you want to become an entrepreneur, or maybe you want to do things that's different. Maybe you want to change your life, but in that process, you have to understand what the situation is and make sure you're emotionally intelligent enough to maintain that. It's a rough process. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to feel good. It's not always going to be, sunshine and rainbows. A new relationship, you have to learn a new person. And even in the most healthiest relationship, you then are, working through unhealed wounds. Things that you may have never spoken to anybody else, or may have said before but are too afraid to say again. That becomes all the way down first to the first element, becoming self-aware. I understand myself, and I understand how I feel. So that's where I'm able to show up the best way that I can in any situation. I may not be the best in your eyes. That's not how consciousness works. I'm conscious enough of myself, not you. So being conscious of myself, I understand how I am moving in certain situations and what I am capable of. So I do the best that I can in every situation. So that's how I know I am conscious. But in that's where you become enlightened. And in that process, it's a little more, detailed. So with that spatial awareness, I understand what's impacting me, what's limiting me, and how I'm limiting myself. That's where that personal development, number 7, comes in. Personal development is what things have you grown and healed from, what's still triggering you. So now in personal development, you really get into the details of yourself. Now, not only are you self-aware, you feel, you think, you hear, you are conscious, you now then understand the impacts of the time, the moments, and then now you get into the personal development of what happened in time before, what happened when you were young, what moments are limiting you in that same way now that you are an adult, that you are, still in a relationship or still maturing as a person. What things are still limiting you today that also limited you when you were young? These are real things. And a lot of us don't put in the time to learn what's going on with ourselves. We are too focused on everybody else, and that happens even in my life sometimes. You get focused on trying to support others, or sometimes you get distracted by work. You get distracted by the processes that you're going through, and then sometimes you get tiring. But then you don't want to be lazy, so it becomes so much that you're working through that really becomes bothersome. And it's not easy. But that's where, for me personally, I really go into the process of appreciating God consciousness. So these aspects that I'm talking about here, currently, I don't just, embody them, or at least attempt to in my life. I also, kind of understand them personally, to the point where it's not a list that I have to read every day to support. It's things that I've embodied in my life that fully supports me through this process. So again, we're gonna go through it. I'm gonna go back to it, and I'm gonna make sure you really understand. Even in the next video, I'm gonna really lay it all out, in a different manner, so you guys can understand it better. But this is the process of God's consciousness. And in that personal development, when you understand what's triggering you and what's limiting you, you then can step into number 8, which is universal understanding. What choices am I making that shapes my reality? How can I change that in the future? Once you making these choices, you making these decisions, and sometimes they are bad. Sometimes you might think they're the best decision you can make. How did that shape your reality? What happened last time? should you keep doing the same thing? You know, is this the best thing you should be doing? And can you change certain things for your future? You know, these are the questions you have to ask yourself continuously, not just, you know, verbally, but mentally, emotionally. You have to really check in on your spirit, man, because without understanding, you know, yourself in that detail, you are lacking a lot of knowledge about yourself. And a lot of us do that. A lot of us don't have the proper knowledge of ourselves because we don't put in the time to understand ourselves. We're not fully self-aware. You know, we don't check our emotions. We don't pay attention to how some situations are on our own. You know, that's our fault. These are things we could have changed, but we didn't. You know, we don't understand our potential. Some people really have low self-esteem and need some validation to be, you know, whoever they feel they should be. And that's, to me, that's weakness. And it's not to shun you or to say that you aren't anything, but you can be stronger than that by actually putting in the work to understand yourself better. It's not easy. I'm not saying I did it right away and it's just clicked up. Like, I started understanding myself better. I became self-aware at 19. So even in this process, it took years, it took time, but it's still not something that was easy. It didn't just happen overnight. 19, I'm 27. Well, next week I'll be 27. So that's not a quick process. That's not a like, oh yeah, it happened, it's cool. No, it's a lot that may happen over that time. It may happen faster for you compared to what it did for me. It may be different for you. It may take longer. But in that process, if you are putting in the work, that's where things change. And a lot of people don't understand that because they don't put in the work. You won't see the progress. A lot of us are waiting on, you know, that moment that's going to change our life. You know, that one thing that's going to change our life. And it's not about that, bro. You got to really put in the work to change your own life. You know what I'm saying? So that's where that universal understanding come in. How can you change that for your future? How can you put in the work right now that's going to help your future? You know, what can you change right now that's going to help you tomorrow? So in the aspect of even just understanding your personal development and things that's triggering you, I can go back. That's where you recognize, like, hey, I've had this problem since I was young. You know, this is something that still bothers me now. And in the future, I don't want that to bother me at all. So what can I, and then you really gonna be able to break it down as you really break yourself down. But when you don't put in that time with yourself, it ain't a requirement of, you know, isolating yourself from the world for years or months at a time. You could really just take moments out the day to really settle in and relax and recognize yourself. And that's where you become universally understanding to God's consciousness, to your consciousness, to everybody else's consciousness. And that's where enlightenment comes in. Why am I held responsible for my choices? What is the right choice? You know, those are the 9 aspects. And in those 9 aspects, you really learn the process of becoming enlightened, the process of becoming the best version of yourself. It's a seed you planted in your mind that springs and grows in different forms. And so number 9, being enlightenment, is the biggest question that really opens your mind to everything that surrounds you and anybody that could come across you. It's a process. So I'm gonna go through it and help you understand number 9 as a whole, and then that'll be all. You know, I really want you guys to feel the fulfillment of this process. It's not something you just gonna see, hear, and feel from everybody, because everybody's process is different. But how I'm able to break this down for you is the best way I can explain things for you to understand the process of your life and how to become the best version of yourself. So becoming self-aware is the number 1 thing. You become self-aware and you understand yourself. Number 2 is becoming emotionally intelligent. Once you become self-aware, once you recognize, oh dang, you know, I do make mistakes sometimes. I do be messing up. Okay, let me see how these mistakes impact people. Okay, these mistakes make them feel like this. I shouldn't be doing this next time. That's where situational understanding come in. Number 3, I understand that next time I shouldn't be doing this, or in this situation I could be doing this, or in some other situations I want to do this. So then that's where you have your understanding of your personal potential. Now, okay, I want to do this. Am I able to do this? What do I need to know to do this? What do I need to learn to do this? What can I, you know, maintain or obtain to grow in that process to do this? That's where you understand your personal potential, because you may not have all the tools right now. You may need to go get some more. But that's where you become conscious, fully conscious, and understanding that I am who I am, and if I need help, I can go seek help because I understand what I'm doing. Boom. In that process, you then understand how your environment impacts you. Your spatial awareness, that's number 6. So you got consciousness, number 5, personal potential, number 4, number 3, situational understanding, number 2, emotional intelligence, number 1, self-awareness, back to number 6, spatial awareness. So I'm self-aware, now I'm spatially aware. I not only understand myself and everything that embodies me and surrounds me, I understand the whole space that surrounds me, this earth, this realm, this these entities, these people. I understand my space, and I understand how those things impact me and sometimes limit me from the day to day. It's a lot of demons that will attack you. It's a lot of things that will come against you. And that's where you have to understand your personal development. What can you do in the process to better yourself? What can you do to support yourself? No matter what happens or occurs, no matter who's there and who's not, what can you do for yourself? That's where you become, that, like I said, personal development, that's number 7. So then you become universally understanding. Universal understanding is number 8. That's where you understand your choices and how they're shaping your reality. Your choices is what's making things happen. Your decisions. It's not anybody else's life. And it's not saying that somebody can't do anything that impacts you. That happens. What I am saying is what you are trying to learn in this process, or even from this video, is what are you doing? What are you capable of? And what is your process to becoming the best version of yourself? And that's becoming universally understanding about what you can do and how you can change your future. What you are doing and what's going on, and how things from you being, self-aware all the way to spatially aware, what are you doing and capable of to change your environment to become a better version of yourself today? What are you doing today as a business owner to become a better business owner in 5 years? What are you doing today? You know what I'm saying? What are you doing as a human being, a person, a child, a boy, a kid, a man? What are you doing today that is impacting you, whether it's good or bad? And what can you do tomorrow to make it better, or make it even better? Some people think I'm doing my best. Okay, do better. Do better. You got an A, you can get an A+. You got a 4.0, you can get a 4.5. That's taking AP class. That's doing the extra. But that's what you should do for yourself. Even if you don't do it for nobody else. Become that understanding of yourself. Because that's how you become enlightened. You are then understanding how you are held responsible for the things you are doing. You're responsible for everything you do in this life. And it is going to impact you whether you look at it as a karmic thing, or whether you look at it in a biblical thing. You are going to have to own up to the things you've done at the end of the day, every day. And if you don't, that's okay. That's where you are missing yourself. That's where you are not, self-righteous. You don't understand how to be a better person, and that's on you. But here's this video to encourage you, teach you, and help you grow. God's consciousness is a process, but in that process, you not only become self-aware, you not only become emotionally intelligent, you not only become, situationally understanding, you not only, learn your personal potential, or become conscious, or have spatial awareness, or understand your personal development, or become universal. These are not the only things. You become enlightened, and that's the biggest thing. Becoming enlightened means you are fully aware of yourself and everyone else, and how you can make things better for them, for the world, and for your life. And that's my goal for anybody that's learning God's consciousness. I just want the best for you, and I want to teach you in the best way that I can. And yeah, I hope that you grow, and I hope that this video helps you all. Enjoy.